morning, good afternoon, good evening, or 2 a.m. good or better already. This is Eagle Eyes on Tech. I am Eagle Falcon after, what, 4 false starts? 5? 18 million?
Yeah, 5 false starts.
Oh my god.
And I'm Regret the Van, and well, at least everything's working on my end.
Yeah, and I'm Eagle Falcon. Good lord. The frickin' soundboard failed, and then the recording software was failing. Some of my moderators in the chat are just going, just go live, just go. It's just like, well, we're not even recording, so what's the point? It's just, why? But despite all of those failures today, between me and Regret getting this thing started, it is absolutely nothing compared to whatever the heck Cloudflare did.
Yep. That's something impressive there. Cloudflare's... Yeah.
I mean, how do you even? So, for those who don't know, Cloudflare is a back-end service that was first invented to help counteract the colossal number of DDoS attacks that have been going on. Tons upon tons of sites use it. I want to say one of the first ones was the notorious troll site 4chan. And their usage just kind of expanded from there. And somehow, through a flaw that even I don't completely quite understand how this freaking happened, an exploit through Cloudflare allowed usernames, passwords, and loads of other such data to leak out from 3,400 websites. Some of them, in fact, just being web services such as Discord, which we'll get into in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any comments on this one? Because I'm
just baffled.
It blew. Because here's the thing. All Cloudflare really does is that it's a service that would just occasionally, like every, I think, 5 minutes, just take like a basic screenshot of the website, and then if the server was down, it would then redirect the Cloudflare and then show that barely functional site. This was comical at best, and I'm going to use 4chan examples a lot, because 4chan goes down all the blasted time. And so all my...
You don't say!
So all my experience with Cloudflare basically comes from laughing at 4chan going down. And every time it would go down, the moment you try to go into a board, like 50% of the time, the board just wouldn't exist. Or the image you're trying to viewing doesn't exist. And this isn't like it's not existing because someone put up the stupid, you can only view this picture if you have a 4chan Platinum account, which doesn't exist. Not that sort of troll. It literally just led to a 404 error. So, Cloudflare from the get-go, their service barely functioned. So it's absolutely baffling that they had access to any data besides a print screen button. But they got it.
They got it. What it is, it's like, oh, security is scary. Let us deal with the security, and your site will be safe. Well, that's the theory. At least that's my theory.
So, if you were on any of the following sites, or have accounts with any of the following sites: Authy, Coinbase, Bitcoin.de, Betterment, TransferWise, Prosper, Patreon, Patreon! Frickin' Patreon is compromised! 4chan's listed.
Yes, 4chan is listed. That's funny.
I don't know why I find that so. It just seems like it just seems like every site in existence just tries to just disavow the knowledge that 4chan exists at all.
That's great. Curse is affected, and some curse related sites.
Curse is affected. Uber is affected.
Although if you go to Uber's response, Uber says, well, very little traffic went through Cloudflare, so we're not that badly hurt.
Oh, and here's probably my personal favorite on the list. Would you think that a Cloudflare breach would affect Cloudflare.com? It's true. The Pirate Bay, also on here. Discord, twice. 2chan, 3 times. Has been affected. 4chan.org again. Addictinginfo.org. Mm-hmm. Oh my god.
No, this
it's just like, okay, if you have an account on the internet, just go change your password.
That's pretty much what the security advisors are saying with this breach is just change your password. Because the data that was compromised is the authentication, is not only just the password, but any of the tokens surrounding that password. So change the password, the tokens get changed.
To answer Namish's question in the chat, I do not see League of Legends anything on the list. But that's also because I have no idea what League site is. If it's
account.leagueoflegends.com is affected.
Oh, never mind. There you go. Also, LOL Nexus is on there. I imagine that's somehow related to League. You're on
Probably.
Yahoo, so you're safe. Yeah, okay. Unjust
Nexus,
from the chat. You go think that.
Nexus Mods has also been affected. So I'll be working with Gibberish Name on that later.
I'm more greatly amused at just glancing through this list real quick. Just how many of these sites actually exist.
Yeah, no, some of them are really weird.
But in any case...
And it covers a wide range of interests, so...
It does. It's just... If you use the internet, not the worst idea in the world to go change your password.
Well, in general, it's not a bad idea to change your password on a routine basis anyways.
Yeah, unfortunately now it means I gotta go think of a password. So, I'm gonna start working. Maybe a slight mod of my current one. Password 2. Got it. No one's gonna figure it out. Do not do that, by the way.
I think password is, like... Hell, if you just do a dictionary attack, that's on the number...
It's number 2. It's number 2 on, 80% of all hacker rainbow tables.
Yeah,
the first one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 most days. Now the thing is that now AO Shaw does ask the question: what if we don't? How on earth is this going to end up affecting us individually? It does mean that these passwords, these usernames, are going to be used on Black Hat rainbow tables. So, if let's say someone wants to try and break into let's say PayPal. It makes sense. That's a common attack to go for, to try and break into an account. And if you use the same password and username on PayPal, they're going to have that in their rainbow table. And what most hackers are going to do is that they're not going to try and say, I'm going to try and actively get into Eagle Falcon's bank account. First off, they're going to be depressed when they actually do it. Second, what they're going to do is that they're just going to try randomly until they get a positive hit.
Yep. And that's exactly how they do it. And it doesn't take long. But the big thing is that once they have confirmation that this name is an active name, they'll just start spamming it everywhere else just to try and see if it works.
Exactly. A lot of Black Hats will look for lists like the one that has now been produced from the Cloudflare breach. And they're just going to now use those username and passwords and just see, okay, where else does this match? Where else will username Eagle Falcon password 1 actually get me into? That is not my actual password, by the way. Do not, under any circumstances, use password 1 as your password. I will actively take a plane, hunt down, and beat you with a brick for thinking that's a good idea. If you are intelligent enough to find this podcast, your password is password 1, go back to school. Any school, any grade, go back there.
Now, A.O. Shaw does point out actually a very good one. Most security systems on larger sites will actually send emails or flag suspicious logins. And I've had this happen. Twitter has sent me notifications of suspicious logins. Google has sent me that a lot. So, I would assume sites like PayPal would also send you, hey, we think this login was suspicious. So there is at least some silver lining there that eventually these will get forcefully changed, but it's not going to be fast enough. There will be some account damage.
On top of that, a lot of sites have been too stupid to even encrypt their stuff in the first place. What are the chances are they're actually going to be smart enough to go, oh, look! Eagle hacked in from Russia this time instead of Podunk, Milwaukee in Wisconsin. I better go send him an email and block that login attempt. The only sites that really do this are the most advanced and the most sophisticated. Google is the first one that comes to mind. World of Warcraft will also do this, seeing as how... But that's just mostly because they have been a huge target of attacks like this since, I don't know, just slightly after the extinction of the dinosaurs?
Unjust Banana points out in chat, apparently someone tried to access his account from Iran, and the State Department actually shut down his PayPal account.
Yeah, that does happen. Look, I mentioned PayPal because that was the first thing that came to my head. Yeah. There could be all sorts of other... There are all sorts of other preventive measures that do exist. The thing is that do you want to really leave it up to chance that those automated procedures are actually going to catch it? And to which I'd say, no. It's nice that they're there, but to me, I'd rather just change my password from password 1 to password 2 and just be like, okay, extra layer of security, nobody's going to go and get my cool $73.
Oh, you've got more money than I do.
That's my life savings.
Ouch.
My entire life is a lie. Sarcasm aside, let's move on.
Yes.
One other thing, actually, before I lied, before we actually move on, one of the things that actually did come up when this Cloudflare breach did occur, it was also exposed that there was an add-on for Discord that was also related to this breach. This had to do with the add-on Better Discord. To which then brings me to my next public service announcement. For the love of God, do not use unverified add-ons. Whether it be on Discord, on any video game, anything. 9 times out of 10, the sole reason the add-on exists is to pretend to advance your experience on whatever it may be, and then hose you down the road. But yes, as Regret the Band just said in the chat, no, Google was not affected. Google is such a colossal giant. They did not need to rely on scrubs like Cloudflare to take cruddy screenshots of their own Google website when the internet came to an explosion and Google actually went down.
Yeah. No, if Google goes down, the entirety of the internet is hurting.
Like that's actually going to be a very good trivia question that I don't actually know the answer of. Has Google ever gone down?
I can think of one time that Google managed to fuck up and put just a slash in the unsafe sites list and ended up blocking the entirety of the internet.
Okay, so it has happened at least once. Oops.
It has happened at least once. and the damage, I think someone actually sat down and did the damage, and it was a significant amount of money was lost for about 1 hour when this had happened. I think it was like in like the $200 million range of just lost revenue across just everybody. So the grand scheme of things, this website probably lost $20, but it adds up.
All right, so we divide that by 10 because those number crunchers absolutely love to have giant fat numbers to make everything seem catastrophic. That makes about 20,000, and that's still a decent chunk.
Yeah.
Actually, what'd you say, 200 million?
Yeah, it was 200 million. So.
All right, so we dropped that down to 200,000, and which is probably closer to the real number that was actually lost, and that's still a decent chunk of money.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, so we are now done officially with the Cloudflare breach. We've now gone through 2, possibly 3 of our public service announcements. Let's get to one of our last ones. Actually, I can't find it. Did I forget to record down the site? I think I did, actually. Well, I'll talk about it real quick without the actual article up. This actually was just announced yesterday by Twitch. Twitch announced a new feature that allows you to change your name.
Oh yeah, that's on Game Informer. It was the article where you linked it to me.
Do I actually have it here? Oh, there it is. I just had it out of order. Alright, there it is. So you can now change your Twitch username. But this brings me to my final, okay, maybe not my final, one of my last public service announcements. If you do change your Twitch name, bots that are active in other channels, such as DeepBot, RevloBot, if you change your name, you will lose progress on those bots.
So,
but otherwise, that feature's there.
Yeah. Pick your name, your new name, if you wish to choose to change your name. Pick it carefully.
Yep. At least until Revlo and DeepBot figure out a way around it.
It probably won't take too long.
I'd probably guess the year 2020. That's probably near the bottom of their list, to be quite honest. Unless it's much easier behind the scenes than I'm imagining. Because it's clear because of this that just came out. And like I learned this morning, that this flaw existed. Based on that fact, you know that they're keeping track just based on Twitch names. They're not keeping track based on like some internal Twitch ID. There might be some sort of Twitch ID they can get access to, in which case there'll just be one day it's just like, okay, everyone's reset. And then there'll be much crying. But in any case, that is that. You can now change your name on Twitch. Hooray.
Hooray!
So now let's move on to the actual 4th tab. A article I am going to file under... Is that really a good idea? Are you really sure about that? In fact, that's what the file's just going to be called. Are you sure? Question mark. I mean,
well, isn't
PC Perspective's title really does say it best. Just the first line being, are you sure that's wise? This is Samsung planning on putting in a third bet. This is now attempt 3, I might add. Attempt 3 on a battery for the Note 7. Also, holy crap! This phone will not die! For a phone that's been officially killed 4 times, this phone refuses to frickin' die! Go on.
I suppose it makes sense that they're trying to get rid of it. They're trying to liquidate stock that they have, because they have the boards, they have the screen, they have the housing, just no battery sitting around. This is taking up space in their warehouse, and space is money in a warehouse. So they're trying to recoup their losses.
I get that they're trying to recoup their losses, but come on, the phone is constantly joked as being the equivalent of a grenade. You are buying weaponry when you buy this phone.
Wait, didn't someone make a mod for GTA 5 that replaced the grenade with one of these?
That'd be hilarious. I have no idea.
I'm gonna have to see if I can find that.
I just don't think this is a great idea. I really don't. I get that they're trying to recover losses, and I mean, a couple of people have pointed out that Samsung has suffered $3 billion worth of losses because of this, and I get they want to recoup that because that's a lot of money to have go missing. Even for a large company like Samsung, that's still a lot of money. I just can't shake the feeling that this is the worst idea they could do.
It's not great, and I will give it that. Everybody, at least in most of the Western world, knows that the Samsung 7 is a unsafe device. And even though now it's been fixed, the fault's been fixed, it's identified, it's now a tainted device. Nobody's going to want to buy it.
Fixed. It's been fixed. With like 10 million quotation marks around the word fixed.
Because it wasn't the device itself that was the battery was the faulty device.
It was the battery twice. And if this was a more reasonable society that could see it and go, oh, okay, that's what happened twice. All right, well, I'll get one now that they've figured it out and now are definitely using a smaller capacity battery and one from a trusted manufacturer, because it is in fact the only phone to explode in this manner. It's not like Samsung has a terrible, terrible long history of exploding phones.
Batteries. Yeah.
And it's like, I would trust it. I would trust a refurbished Note 7. I guarantee 95% of the population will not.
Yep. And by the way, the answer for the GTA 5 mod with the Samsung Note 7, the answer is yes. There's a lot of videos on YouTube of this.
Because why not? Why wouldn't the internet do this?
Because that's what the internet does.
But my point is that 95% of the population is not going to buy a refurbished Note 7. 80% of the population is going to look at the fact that it's back on the shelf and go, what in the is Samsung thinking? Because 100% of the population knows that this phone is basically a brick of lit C4, even though that's not how C4 works.
Well, they're going to try, and it comes down to the money. They want that loss. They want to minimize that loss, and they're going to try.
I get that, but that's the reward. I think the risk is far greater, especially doing this weeks before Mobile World Congress, when the S8's going to come out in a week or two, and then you put freaking grenades back on the shelves.
This is also Samsung that we're talking about. That their South Korean leadership is currently, at least I think that was their South Korean CEO, is now sitting in a jail cell. So, great company choices there.
I didn't hear about that one. That's
Yeah, no, he was arrested. Bribery, I believe.
I find a lot more humor out of that than I should.
Let's see if I can find.
But in any case, it's coming back. It's going to be refurbished. It's going to have a 3,000 milliamp battery instead of the normal 3,500 milliamp battery, which, by the way, hilariously enough, the 3,500 milliamp that it originally had was smaller than the one in the S7 Plus. We'll see what happens. By the way, that actually does bring up the point. We're not going to be talking about Mobile World Congress. There are literally a metric ton of leaks of various phones that are going to be coming out. I don't know why I would even bother talking about them when we're literally going to have the actual hard facts tomorrow. Talking about the leaks from Mobile World Congress literally makes no sense to me. I mean, I could, but why theorize what could be happening when you could just actually see what happens? And I'll get to more on that later. But, in any case, I'm assuming you went and found the article about Samsung's glorious leader being in a jail cell for bribing. Who did he bribe?
I'd have to... Here, let me reopen that closed tab.
I already lost interest. Let's move on. The point is, he's in jail for bribery, and that's funny.
Yeah, arrested in connection to the corruption and influence peddling scandal that threatens to topple the country's impeached president. So, pretty significant charge.
So,
there.
fantastic. Fantastic. So, for bribing for political purposes, you know, the one that's guaranteed to get you arrested. Good show. I'm sorry, you needed to bribe the corrupt government, not the uncorrupt one. You go to jail.
Yeah.
Alright. Let's move on. This was a funnier story until I looked into it.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to start off funny and then actually gets serious, literally legitimately serious.
It actually gets... It goes down a completely different path for a completely different reason. Because at first... Alright, so the title is Google's lawsuit against Uber revolves around frickin' lasers. So, what this is that Google is filing a lawsuit against Uber involving the theft of LiDAR technology. That's what certain self-driving cars use to detect and perceive around them. It's what Google uses, and that's also what Uber is using. Now, I was prepared to start going on a rant about, oh boy, here we go again. Uber looking for all the shortcuts, trying to dodge around every little thing, going ahead and robbing Google to try and ace out all the drivers they're paying. And then you look deeper as to which departments actually did it. And I actually kind of feel bad for Uber. So, Google's lawsuit is actually from one of their internal departments that is called I Already Stopped Caring. And they are suing Auto, a company that Uber bought that is using LiDARs, laser depth sensing on semi-trucks to use self-driving. Uber's had this business for about a month. And here they are.
Already getting sued. Honestly, a self-driving semi looks a lot better than Google's self-driving car.
Well, yes and no. What Auto was doing was, and Unjust Banana actually does make a good point. It's technically Alphabet suing Uber.
Yeah, it is.
But I hate the name Alphabet and therefore refuse to acknowledge it. I mean, come on. I already am not even mentioning the name of the Google, of the Alphabet owned company that is actually working on self-driving cars. Because, let's be real honest, maybe 40% of the population knows that Alphabet owns Google. And roughly 10% of the population even knows that Waymo, that I just had to scroll down and actually find out what the name of the blast organization was in the first place, is actually the department working on the, quote, Google self-driving car, and that it's not actually Google. But 100% of the population knows that Google is working on self-driving cars.
Yep.
So, my whole rant about how I hate names is basically my way of correcting the record and still saying I still don't care about names.
And you know what? I don't blame you, because it's like, everybody knows Google has got their hands in so many little things, and well, technically it's not Google, it's Waymo, it's whatever. It's still Google.
The part, though, that amuses me about this is that those who don't know, I do courier truck driving for a living. Not the big rigs, more like 4-wheeled and 6-wheeled straight trucks. I've been kind of fascinated by the whole self-driving semis for a while. And I kind of keep tabs on that. The way Auto was doing it was very clunky. Putting this whole wireframe around already existing Volvo trucks and having like robotic levers within the truck, having it to shift gears and do whatnot rather than actually working itself. And only to find out that Auto was doing this clunky, cruddy job, and they were doing it with stolen tech that they stole from Google.
Now, okay, I'm gonna step in and say, and on Auto's behalf here, compared to our cars, which is almost entirely fly-by-wire, the engine is very closely mated with the transmission. In fact, you take the engine, you cannot couple that to another transmission. It only goes to its transmission. So the ECU and the transmission controls are very closely intertwined. Whereas on a semi, you have two separate parties that can be building the engine and transmission, and then a third one is actually doing the assembly of putting those two together. So the interconnecting controls are going to be different. There's going to be some differences.
So is this the part where I point out they're specifically using Volvo trucks because Volvo makes every part of the engine? This isn't a Kenworth or a Peterbilt or a Freightliner. Well, Freightliner's another story. This isn't a Navistar or a Kenworth or a Peterbilt where they go to Cummins for an engine, go to Allison for a transmission, and then mix it together with a Packard chassis or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Volvo does everything in house, and the reason I put Freightliner in their own category is because Freightliner, in fact, has a working self-driving truck.
I'm gonna have to dig that up.
Freightliner Inspiration. It's currently out in Utah. And on top, and yeah. So that's how it is. Former Google employees committed espionage, basically, went over to Auto. Auto then surged up, focused on Volvo trucks for this thing. Then Uber bought Auto, thinking that they can use Auto's tech in their own cars, only to find out that Auto stole all the tech in the first place from Waymo also known as the Google self-driving car division. Oh, okay, bye.
No, I actually just took a look at the picture for the Freightliner, so I just figured to show it.
Well, you vanished, actually. Completely.
Whoops!
You're gone. Everyone's now seeing my stream label box that was there.
Alright, well, I guess I'll just bring myself back.
And hopefully you reappear. So, in any case, there's that. Now, let's go to the meat of today's topic now that Regret's face is gone. And is still gone.
It's still gone. Whoops. No, that's not what I wanted to do. Turn my video back on. Stop that.
Yeah, I can't even see you in my alt tabs. You're gone.
Apparently I died.
You're gone now. I can hear you. And you're coming through on OBS, so you're somewhere. I don't know where though.
Yeah, and my camera is still showing I'm recording, that I'm live, so I'm broadcasting out, so something happened.
So anyway, this I think like everyone in tech knows about this, whether it be on my level or just I like PCs, hear me roar level.
Rawr.
AMD has officially revealed Ryzen, also known as the AMD Zen chips. They have revealed the specs, they have revealed the performance, and pre-orders have started today. In fact, every tech blogger now is praising AMD for their great performance increase that has now been proven without dispute. Except every single one of these people are stupid. I cannot believe the number of colossal morons who have gone out now, looked at the benchmarks that AMD put out, and said, this is undisputable fact, AMD is alive again. What? Pop quiz for you, Regret. What was the key part that I said there?
That was that, one, the data came from AMD directly and not from
Bingo!
third-party verified sources.
You've nailed it! I cannot believe the number of idiots reporting on these benchmarks as though these came from a frickin' unbiased source.
Mm-hmm. And I love the article on this one. That's the good news. The bad news, you're doing it without the guidance of independent reviews. This article that we have up on screen.
Yeah, from PC Per, which is one of the few tech bloggers out there that, first off, not only does their own benchmarks, but actually points stuff like this out. And that's why I will always appreciate what they do.
Ethics in journalism.
I know, it's not dead yet.
For now.
It's amazing. But here's the part that also stands out to me. When was the last time you ever heard of a CPU being pre-released?
Never. I've never heard of a I could see, like, test copies being issued to hardware manufacturers so that they can get their equipment tooled up for producing boards compatible with this new chip. But
exactly.
But sending them out as a pre-release, no, that's.
Neither can I, and neither can Ryan Shroud of PC Per. This is normally not a thing that's done. So, don't get me wrong. I want AMD to succeed. I badly, 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 badly want AMD to be relevant again. I so badly want them to be able to put out a processor that actually looks at Intel in the face and says, guess what? We can make your stupid $1,000 black Core i7 for $300. I badly want that to happen.
Just somebody to knock Intel down a rung.
That being said, I am 90% certain that Ryzen will not meet any of the benchmarks they just released.
Probably not, and until we get independent reviews and verifications on these numbers, I can't believe them.
Neither can I. And the fact that they're pre-ordering these, that they're trying to get people in based on the previous hype that has been released for the last year. For the last year, this processor has been hyped. And for a solid year, I have been saying, I will believe this when I see it. We're only a week away now, and guess what? I will still only believe it when I see it.
Yeah. And this one, we'll probably be following this particular bit closely.
Oh, yes, we are. Absolutely.
But for the meantime, no. Hang on to Intel for a bit.
Well, right now is... But here's the other thing that actually seemed kind of weird to me. They are comparing... Well, actually, no. What they're comparing it to Broadwell E parts, which are going to be obsolete in 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
And they are including one Kaby Lake part, one actual part that people buy.
Yes.
But now some of the benchmarks I'd love to see is, first off, ones that didn't come from AMD, and two, I want to see this go up against the top-tier Kaby Lake i5. Because that is the processor to beat. That is... Mm-hmm. I mean, despite the 7700K, which is currently Intel's best Core i7, that isn't an E part, the top-tier i5 is the part to beat, because that's their most popular part. Hands down.
Yeah.
So, the bottom line is, pre-ordering this part is a sucker's bet. And I would be paying an extremely close eye on what PC Per's benchmarks are going to say, what Tom's Hardware's benchmarks are going to say, and every other independent benchmarker is going to say these actually compare at. That is going to be the key. So, with that, let's move on to some of the articles we've been holding over for quite some time. First up is this thing. So, here's my question to you, Regret.
All right.
Before I gave you this article, have you ever heard of Aorus?
No. I had never heard of Aorus.
So, this isn't the first time I've heard of Aorus. The first time I heard of Aorus, it was when they released a fleet of gaming laptops that were, hands down, the most boring things I've ever seen in my entire life. And this is coming from the guy who finds business laptops fascinating.
So these particular laptops they're talking about, they were just pretty much nothing special, no innovation in them at all.
I want you to imagine a matte black MacBook.
Oh, so
that ate like 10 Big Macs. And then had an RGB keyboard.
yeah, okay, I can see why a business laptop would be more fascinating. I'm just looking at my Dell Latitude here going, well, it's got that faux brushed aluminum case.
Already more impressive.
Yep.
But the thing that made Aorus interesting was what they shoved into the laptop. These were gaming laptops that at the 14-inch level they shoved in a 980. At the 15 and 17-inch levels, they were shoving in dual graphic cards. On all the laptops, they were shoving in capture cards. Apparently our title screen is not updated. I am quickly fixing that. There we go. I'm glad we had this talk. So, so I mean, they were shoving a lot of tech into these laptops, and they were just kind of one that just went, huh. You know, if an HP bought them, they could go places. Because, my God, they can't do laptop design to save their life. But they have some ideas.
Yep.
And then, strolling through PC Pro, I came across this graphic card. And I hate this card. It is the Aorus GTX 1080 XE. Now, it's got plenty of cooling.
Yes, no, that's a chunky card.
It's a very chunky card. It's got plenty. The cooling's done right. Except for the fact that the frontal vents do nothing. But every single dissipation-based graphic card does this. There's even there's a small heatsink even on the bottom to help cool exactly where the GPU would be. So they did everything right.
Yep.
The reason I hate this card is because it takes away one of the biggest advantages the 1080 had.
Okay.
It exceeds the power limit the 1080 had and requires 2 8-pins.
Yeah, I see the 8-pins. I look at this thing and go, it's unfinished. It looks unfinished. It looks actually like an old hard disk, too, sort of.
Old hard disk.
Yeah, no, look at that case. But...
Yeah. I mean, I had to go and pull up the actual review, because PC Pro was reporting on this from Tech Report. This exact card. It actually reminds me a lot of Gigabyte cards.
Okay.
The thing that's kind of strikes me as odd right off the bat is the fact that 2 fans are higher than the other one. But I mean, that's just their own life choices. I would have thought it would have been better to go just make it longer. I mean, you clearly don't... I mean, clearly you're designing this card to go into a super rig anyway, seeing as how it already requires 2 8-pins.
Yeah.
It's going to be extremely difficult to fit this into, say, a mini ITX box.
Or anything that can accept a full-length triple-slot card.
Yeah. Now, here's the strangest optical illusion this thing does. This thing manages to look like a triple-slotted card, and probably will still take up 3 slots. But it's only a dual slot.
Really?
Yes. It is a dual-slotted card.
Also, why is it... It looks like in one of the pictures, it looks like it has HDMI.
Yes. This actually is another thing I have seen on... This was a thing that EVGA and Gigabyte and Asus did for like an entire generation and then thought it was pointless. What this is for is that certain cases would include a... Actually, the graphic cards themselves would include a 5.25 bay to put into the front, and then run HDMI cables to the card. And the sole purpose of this was to connect a VR headset to the front, rather than fidgeting to the back to hook it up.
All right.
So that's what those are for.
That's a neat idea.
I don't know how many people it caught on for, especially since it's already hard to find people in general who actually went out and got a VR headset in the first place.
Yep, something about that high cost of entry that we covered. I think it was, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, maybe. I might have even talked about it last week a little bit. I don't even, what did I even talk about last week? I don't even know. But yeah, there's that. Oh, I have a chart here.
There's a chart. Charts are always important.
It actually shows the clock speed comparing the Aorus to a gigabyte. And that's actually it's actually fascinating because the difference is negligible.
It is.
The clock is roughly 150 higher than the base. But compared to the gigabyte one, which is 2 slots, it's like 10 hertz.
Yeah, no, it's not.
It's not even worth mentioning.
Nope.
So, with that, let's move on.
Moving on.
Next up is a very strange gem.
Ooh, I'm gonna have to see if you link that one to me.
So, this is called... the actual thing is called Storj. Now, I know they're trying to have you pronounce it phonetically and say it's storage, but it's spelled Storj. Therefore, it's going to be Storj until you start obeying grammar.
Are we going to have to break out the GIF or GIF war here?
I am going to murder you. Not because you have chosen a side on this war, but because you have referenced the war.
Yep.
It's GIF, God damn it.
Oh. Good, we're on the same side.
Good, I'm still going to hunt you down for bringing it up in the first place. Because, my God, talk about a war that never needs to happen. Ever.
Yeah, no kidding.
Oh. What if the G is silent?
Actually, someone came up with the etymology for why GIF is correct, is because that particular word, graphics, has a Greek root.
Yeah. But anyways.
So, there you go.
Enough of that stupid war that I wish would die. And the fiery... Anyway, so... Storj is a service that you can download onto a PC, and you can rent out chunks of your hard drive to a botnet. I know it's not exactly a botnet, but it's basically a botnet. And you do earn money by renting out your hard drive. But, I just... It's not just me, right? This just sounds incredibly dirty and scummy and like I'm going onto the black market.
It does sound shady, I will give it that. It's like, wait a minute, so you're renting the space from the hard disk. How is it making sure that it's not wandering into space that's not supposed to be there, or is it creating a partition? And in which case,
yeah,
it's still easy to jump from partition to partition. So I'm not sure on this. Okay, yeah, you're making money off of it.
Like, the only way I could see myself doing this is finding some sort of low wattage machine I have and just making a dedicated service to do it. But then the question is, am I doing anything? Because it's 1.5 cents per gigabyte you lend out to them. So 1 terabyte is roughly $15. That roughly makes up the... Actually, now I'm doing the math in my head.
Yeah, no, I'm looking at that. It's like, okay, at 1.5 cents... If this is a monthly thing, then this would actually pay for itself if you did a small NAS rig with that running on it.
This is going to be an experiment for another episode. Grabbing an old Dell R310 and shoving four 2 terabyte drives in it.
I have an old Gateway i3 machine laying around. It might be an entertaining experiment for me to run as well.
I'd want to do it on paper first. Because the other thing to make sure is that you make enough to cover the power bill.
Power and the network, the bandwidth that you're going to be chewing up with it.
Now, Ailshaw actually brings up a question I was just about to ask myself. What happens when the customers of stores child porn on my server?
That does become an interesting question, because legally, well, you cannot be charged, as I would assume that Storj would encrypt things so that the owner of the server really can't see what's going on that on that machine.
Are you sure?
But
are you sure?
It does turn into a legal gray question, as does that machine get seized, or does everybody's computer in that, for example, okay, does all of my computers get seized because someone stored CP on the NAS server for Storj?
It already sounds so sketch to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't surprise me at all if Storj thinks they're good by just like saying, "Oh, just give the program administrative permission." All right, file tag hidden, done. You'd hope not. But I mean,
I think before we go into this experiment, we would both have to read how Storj would protect the server's owners.
For starters, I wouldn't be doing this with a physical machine at all. This would just be is this profitable? The other problem that does come up, and I was going to get to that before Unjust brought it up, was that the payment is in Bitcoin, so the value of 1.5 cents per gigabyte is very volatile.
All right, so we're going even shadier now.
Absolutely. But in any case, that is going to do it for us, unfortunately. We have to cut it short. Putting off every other article, which, by the way, just going to quickly point out, Gigabyte has now fallen under the terrible disease of the RGB disease. My name is Eagle Falcon. You can catch my streams at twitch.tv/Eagle_Falcon. With me is a good co-streamer of mine, Regret_the_Van. You can find him streaming there. Take care, everyone. We'll see you next week. Bye!
Yep.
Alright, so one last thought we want to close out with is the mini STX build that PC Per did at the beginning of the month. I feel like we need to at least talk about this, and also the existence of this board, at least before the end of February.
Yes.
So, let's be real honest. Before I came across this article, I never knew there was a non-proprietary board that was smaller than a mini ITX. Did you?
No, I figured ITX was the smallest, and that's where it stopped.
And yet, here it is, in all of its miniature glory. The little case they used was from Silverstone. It measures 6.1 by 5.98 by 2.56 inches. It is dangerously close to being one of those Intel Nooks or a Mac Mini. In fact, I think a Mac Mini actually takes up more surface area than this thing.
Yeah. No, it does look like an Intel Nook.
That was actually the first thing that came to mind. Now, they have the two boards next to each other. They have a mini ITX, specifically one of my favorite ones, the EVGA Stinger, next to whatever the heck this thing is.
Yep. You can get a heatsink bigger than that board.
I think this might actually be bigger than that whole board. Actually, no. Actually, I know it's not, but it's pretty close. So this thing only holds the CPU, which somehow, by some strange twist of fate, actually is big enough to have a full-size processor on it. 2 SODIMMs for RAM. A whole 1 SATA port. That's it? Just one?
Just one.
Just one? And
no RAID for you.
And a mystery chip. Which I hope is the South Bridge, but for all I know, could in fact be a gateway into another dimension where the rest of the motherboard is.
I'm going to go with gateway into another dimension where the rest of the motherboard is. If these things are supposed to be sold as like a Steam box, that chip is way too small to be a competent GPU.
Well, here's the thing. The way this board is placed out... Now, there is 2 last things I forgot to mention. There is a mini PCI Express slot to add a Wi-Fi card, and there is an M2 slot. So, you can get a whole 2 drives on here. 1 normal, and 1 M2. Now, the first thing you... Now, you mentioned a Steam box. There's no way this could be a Steam box. Except for the fact that ASRock did in fact build a motherboard on this same mini form factor that has a slot that probably nobody in the chat even knows about called an MXM slot. Go ahead.
I think we looked at that a few weeks ago, and it's actually, that one at least is something, you could do something useful with it. This other board, this mini STX board, about only that's good for is a thin client with some serious hardware behind it.
Now, there's a few things I want to point out actually about this particular board. Now, the ASRock board does have an MXM slot, so you can get a laptop graphic card, like this one I have in my hand, on it. But you will need to get a dedicated cooler for this. And then, here's the other baffling part. If you look at the ASRock version with the MXM slot, there is no SATA port, and there's no M2. The only storage that can handle on this strange little mini abomination of a board is happening externally. Unless one of those little chips that are going to be hidden and then cooked by the graphics card is, 20 gigs of storage that you can put an OS on it.
Well, you can wedge Windows 10 onto an embedded chip like that, and you can wire the chip up like it's a hard disk, so I don't see why you couldn't.
Now, I know of all sorts of standard formats that are never used. Let's see here. There's Mini ITX until recently. MATX, ATX, EATX, EXATX, XLATX, and my personal favorite form factor that's never used, that I don't even think Regret the Van knows about, HPTX.
No, that is not a form factor I'm familiar with.
It's a motherboard about the size of your car.
Oh, well,
I exaggerate only slightly. It's like a 2-foot by 2-foot board. It is massive.
I think I might have run across a HP ATX board,
if you actually want some fun facts, look up the EVGA SR2 and SRX. These are both HPTX boards. They're massive. But, in any case, getting back to this board. This Asus board, to answer Craig Joe's in the chat's question, no, I will not be buying this board because I could get any other board and have functions.
Pretty much. The one with the MXM slot at least has some glimmer of a hope for usefulness. The other type,
the base one. But here's the strange trade-off. The other one, you at least had the SATA drive in the M2 slot, so you could at least just make it a mini desktop for a work environment. Say, here you go, knock yourself out, and you could stick it under the desk. You could hide it there, no problem. This guy, on the other hand, if you're trying to build, let's say, an Xbox competitor, okay, fine, you got this, you shove, one of these cards in it, and then goes, okay, well, it barely performs, then what? There's no storage.
Well, then it would be purely a thin client device. But thin clients don't need that much processing on the front end. They're all back-end processing, so...
So, okay, now I have conflicting information here. Because according to the documentation that ASRock provides for this, supposedly somewhere on here there is an M2 key E and two M2s key M somewhere on this board. So unless it's on the flip side, I don't see it. And only then would this actually have hope of being useful. My point in the grand scheme of things is, if I was, let's say someone in the chat or even Regret challenges me, go build the biggest, baddest Xbox-sized rig you can.
Which would be a fun challenge.
I would never in a million years use this board.
No, I would actually... I'd be looking at like an ITX board or an ITX. Mini ITX.
If it was just the size of the Xbox, my go-to would be the Bulldog. That's a bare-bones case used by Corsair. That already is the size of the Xbox One with a Mini ITX and has all the fittings to make it happen.
Okay.
And then it's just a matter of, okay, slap in your GTX 1080 and your Core i7 whatever. And then, yeah. And then you're just off to the races.
All right, Craig Jones actually is asking a good question in chat. Just get a mid tower, forget the possibilities. Does size really matter? And it really depends what you're trying to do with the computer.
Yeah. The go ahead.
If you're trying to, say, wedge it into an entertainment center where your standard size has more or less been set by a VCR or disc player or what have you, then that's your goal size. You don't want this honking big tower hanging off the side of your entertainment center looking terribly out of place. If you're trying to suspend the computer off of a back of a VESA mount, then you're going to want something even smaller. So I could see size does matter, but for gaming, eh.
The funny thing is that a lot of people are still in the mindset that you need at least a mid tower or a full tower to game. You really don't, because you can fit as much space as you can in a mini ITX form factor at close to the same price. Once you start getting to the Xbox form factor, you start paying a little bit extra to get that small form factor. But in the case here of the STX, the cons outweigh the pros by miles.
Yeah, it's one of those, they didn't stop to think if they should. They just went, well, we can.
Yeah. Yes, we can, but no. Just stop. You're done. Just put it away. We need to make this board go away. That's just all there is to it. Just go stick with either an MATX or an ITX. Maybe an ATX or EATX if you're doing something crazy. But that's it.
Yeah, and there's actually one more I could think of, and even there it's not good for it, is embedded processing. But even there's already boards, and they're actually tiny. They're about the size of the STX board, but those are highly packed-in machines that throw the expansion bus out onto a pin header. So this thing doesn't do that. Yeah.
In fact, that's pretty much going to be my answer for all of this. Why? Why did
stereo.
Why did ASRock make a board with an MXM slot on it? Granted, I find that hilarious, but why? Why even make the form factor? Why did any of this get greenlit? The Nook is already a form factor that people were just kind of fascinated by, but nobody bought onto.
Mm-hmm.
It's just... ugh.
Yeah.
We just make it go away, and then we can all just go to bed.